How's everyone doing? Today I have a Blu-ray update. 8 pickups right here, and there's 1 DVD. And if you've seen any of these movies, definitely let me know what you think of them. And there's a couple 4K titles in here. First up is T2 Trainspotting, which is the 4K Ultra HD release. And this is from Sony, and they did a great job with their special features here especially. This is 20 years after the original Trainspotting, directed by Danny Boyle again here. And he did a great job direction-wise. The actors all look surprisingly well aged. They look so similar from Trainspotting 20 years prior. And when I was in college, I was really into the original Trainspotting movie and Irvin Welsh's novel. And I checked out Trainspotting, the novel, Porno, The Acid House, I believe it was, Filth, and Glue from Irvin Welsh. I kind of went on a big kick after I read and then saw the original Trainspotting, which had a very big impact. Some just incredibly memorable scenes in there. That baby scene always creeped me out. This one didn't have the same impact, especially societal wise, but it does have a good impact, and it's a great follow-up from the original tale. Again, it's 20 years later, and it's following all their lives and what happens to them. Bigby has been in prison for the past 20 years, Spud is a junkie, and Sick Boy is essentially a con man, and Renton is basically going through the motions of everyday life and just going through the dredges essentially. And he has a heart issue and decides to go back to his hometown, visit his old room, and catch up with his old buddies. So they basically go through the motions, and especially you know, with the fact that Renton stole the money, he has a big confrontation with Sick Boy, and then of course Bigby. They all play their roles so well. You basically go through all of the emotions, you know, love, longing, fear, and just basically all those wasted years that they went through and trying to gain something out of it. And I love the ending to this. That basically shows you that you can gain something out of your life no matter what you've gone through and the point that you're in. I did enjoy the special features on here. You get deleted scenes, 20 years in the making, conversation with Danny Boyle on the cast, and commentary with Danny Boyle and writer John Hodge. The quality is a slight uptick over the 1080p presentation, but I think the biggest thing here was the HDR. That definitely shined here for the 4K Ultra HD release. And nice slip cover, and again you get the black case for the 4K Ultra HD release. It's region free, as all 4K Ultra HD releases are. A very good follow-up. My one criticism is the title, T2 Trainspotting. There's really only one T2, and that's Terminator 2. So I didn't really like that. They should have just been Trainspotting 2 instead of T2 as the first part of the title. But if you like Trainspotting, I think you'll like the sequel 20 years later. You see that same cast of characters, and I like the new Choose Life speech that Renton gives. I think that was something that was very poignant for today's society, kind of updated that, and that really worked well. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one if you're a fan of the first. And next up from Broad Green Pictures is Song to Song, a new film from Terrence Malick. Pretty much the same thing that he's done the past few years. Style over substance, very superfluous, a lot of close-up shots on the actors' faces, a lot of shots that just linger way too long. It feels like a film student art house kind of movie. The plot is secondary, which has again been the case like Into the Wonder and a few of his other films, Night of Cups. Terrence Malick has really mastered the concept of making a 2-hour movie feel like 8 hours. I think a movie like this needs an intermission so you can kind of gather your sanity and figure out if you really want to stick through it. This was tedious to sit through. It just dragged so much. The visuals were stunning, but that's really the best thing I can say about it. The actors did the best they could with what they had. A great cast here: Michael Fassbender, Ryan Gosling, Rooney Mara, and Natalie Portman. You also saw a lot of cameos from musicians because it's set in the Austin music scene. You get some of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Val Kilmer's in there. A bunch of other artists too. It's basically a love triangle story. Michael Fassbender is a music producer, and he gets into a relationship with Rooney Mara, and then Rooney Mara gets into a relationship with Ryan Gosling, who is a musician, and they don't tell Ryan Gosling about their ongoing relationship. And then Michael Fassbender meets Natalie Portman in a diner, and they have a relationship. So it's all sorts of everywhere with that. But I do like how it kind of plays out with the relationship towards the end, especially with Rooney Mara and Ryan Gosling. But again, by that point, you just don't really care about what's going on. It's just so much of the visuals, too many of those lingering shots. Again, beautiful, lush cinematography. Visuals are spectacular. It looks fantastic in 4K Ultra HD, but the plot, again, is secondary, and that's a big issue with a lot of Terrence Malick films, especially in the past couple decades. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. If you're a Terrence Malick fan, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into, especially with his films as of late. So if you're a fan of that style from him, you'll probably enjoy this one. But if you're not, you won't, because it's the same kind of thing. Again, it feels more like an art house student film. Again, playing up more the cinematography and the scenery and the establishing shots and all of that, more so than the plot. And the lone special feature is the music behind the movie. Next up from Arrow Video is Doberman Cop. This is another of the Sonny Chiba releases. The transfer wasn't that great. It was better than Wolf Guy. Both Wolf Guy and Doberman Cop are restorations from Toei Pictures, and those are kind of problematic. This one, again, like I said, was a little bit better than Wolf Guy, but again, I feel like a movie like this, though, you don't want it too clean. So in a way, it kind of works. You get some grain there. But basically, this is Sonny Chiba, who is a small town cop going to a big city, so he's kind of a fish out of water, and they kind of think of him as a hick who doesn't know what he's doing. He comes strolling in with a big pot-bellied pig, which he brings like everywhere, which is super hilarious, especially when he brings it to the strip club. And then the final shot where he walks with the pot-bellied pig is actually really endearing, and it kind of brings a lot of the humor to the film that works. There's some good fight sequences in here, and it's kind of a mystery. He's trying to find out what happened to this girl that was from his hometown who moved to the big city, and trying to figure out where she disappeared to. And there's a bunch of murders happening. There's a cover-up story that does involve some of the police. Again, there's some really good scenes in here, especially stunt-wise from Sonny Chiba, and they talk about it in the special features. In Wolf Guy, they had another sit-down interview with Sonny Chiba, and that kind of continues here. The interview special was really good. That was the standout special feature in here. Some really good special features from Arrow Video. They do top-notch releases here. Again, the transfers, the special features, the overall packaging. You get the newly commissioned artwork, the clear case. You get the disc artwork, Blu-ray DVD combo pack, which are unique right there. And then you get the reversible artwork, which is the old school artwork right there. And then, of course, you get the booklet, which has tons of behind-the-scenes information. There's Sonny Chiba there with his straw hat. But yeah, it involves a singer as well. That's kind of the big plot line, and trying to figure out how the female singer kind of is involved in everything that's going on. And you can kind of see certain things coming a mile away. But I do like the way that it plays out, and Sonny Chiba was awesome to see here. I think he did a fantastic job, and the special features really shine. So if you're a fan of Sonny Chiba, I think you'll really enjoy Doberman Cop. There's no dog involved. It's basically just how he was, you know, kind of tough and hard-nosed, which is kind of funny because the last movie released from Arrow Video with Sonny Chiba was Wolf Guy. So playing up his animalistic characteristics right there. So it's sleazy, funny, hard-nosed, and then you have a Yakuza turned music manager there who's you know, basically protecting over the singer. So he's just basically trying to get to the root of what happened to the missing girl, and then all the murders happening and the cover-up essentially. Next up, another release from Arrow Video, The Beast. Holy moly, I was not prepared for this movie. This movie starts out with a pretty graphic scene of two horses having sex. You see the horse penis going into the horse vagina. I have never seen something like that for the start of a movie. Definitely caught me off guard, and there's like pictures of the horses having sex that are shown throughout the movie, and it's basically about this creature, this beast, which is like, you know, basically somebody in a furry suit centuries ago who has a giant phallic piece, essentially, penis, that he chases this girl in the woods, and the girl gives him like a foot job, and there's tons and tons of semen flowing through. And so basically it's that same bloodline from that 18th century ancestor with the beast kind of updated, and the son is looking to get married, and it's kind of like an arranged marriage. This woman whose father passed away put in the will that she's to marry this guy. So she goes to this big, you know, essentially castle estate, and to meet for the first time. They were exchanging letters, and she's so excited, and she goes there, and then she starts having these visions of the beast. So, and it's really weird how it plays out, especially the ending. I'm like, that's it? That's how you leave on this? Essentially, it's a sex comedy in a way. It's, yeah, super weird, but a great transfer here. So if you are a fan of the film, I think you'll really enjoy it. And there's a nearly hour-long, just shy of an hour, making of the Beast, and a ton of special features right there. But super bizarre. That face pretty much says it all. Again, Arrow Video does a great job with their releases. The Blu-ray DVD combo packs, the booklet, transfer. Oh, here's a, I guess I gotta block that out, but you can see right there the Beast's hands getting ready to caress the booty right there. But yeah, super bizarre. But again, here's a here's a picture of the Beast. You can see what it looks like right there. But it's, yeah, again, a giant fake penis, lots of fur, guy in a, you know, fur suit essentially, but lots of information here in the booklets. And there is the reversible artwork, Labette, and this is directed by Valerian Borazek, who's also done some other sexually depraved films, Story of Sin, which is another Arrow Video release. But yeah, super crazy film. Yeah, a big part of it is the short story that was adapted to the full one, which is spliced into the movie, showing the Beast, you know, getting it on with this young lady in the woods. And yeah, just bizarre, crazy. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that. A lot of weird sexual perversion going on, but it's comedic at the same time. Next up from Vinegar Syndrome is Nurse Sherri. This one was problematic, but it was partly due to the filming of it. It was a combination of 16mm and 35mm print, so there's two versions on here. You get a bunch of special features in here, but you get the alternate feature-length exploitation version, which is DVD only. And that basically has a lot more softcore porn elements going on to it, essentially. A lot more nudity. And this is directed by Al Adamson, who did a lot of schlocky, Z-grade exploitation movies in the 70s. This might be one of his better films, and that's kind of saying a lot, because this movie was very crazy, ridiculous. There was a car chase scene that seemed to go on forever. It was just probably the most boring car chase scene I've ever seen. But basically it's about this religious zealot whose evil spirit goes into this nurse, and the nurse starts killing all the people at the hospital and trying to exact the revenge, and she's possessed by that evil spirit. You see this weird green aura, like you know, shapeless kind of thing, essentially kind of attacking her, kind of making love to her, it looks like. And then from that point on, she's possessed. Super bizarre film, not well acted, not well directed, just kind of, again, schlocky, ridiculous. A big part of this movie has a football player who's lost his eyesight, and he's talking to the nurse, and he kind of helps and figures out what's going on. But yeah, just kind of crazy. But here's the Blu-ray version, and there's the DVD one, which is called Killer's Curse. I believe this was also at one point called Terror Hospital, which I like that title so much better. And one thing I like about Vinegar Syndrome is they also have interior artwork, or sometimes reversible covers, which I dig. But a bunch of special features on here, so if you're a fan, you will definitely appreciate that. A good company releasing exploitation and horror films. Again, I like the clear cases, the special features, the dual covers that you can choose from. Next up is Malibu High. Love that cover artwork. This is one that I hadn't seen prior to checking it out now, and I always wanted to, because I was like, oh, that chick's hot, I really want to see it for that. And I like that artwork behind there too, the cartoonish figures. This is from 1978, and this one I had some really good special features in here too, including interviews with some of the lead people in here, group commentary, Q&A, just a whole bunch of short films too. But it's basically about this girl who's not doing well in school. She lives with her mother. Her boyfriend breaks up with her for the rich girl, and she decides to become a prostitute and blackmails some of her male teachers into getting good grades. And then once she becomes a prostitute, she meets another guy who's like, hey, I'll give you more money. Instead of dealing with this you know, dime store pimp, you can do it big time, make way more money. And then from there, she becomes a hired hit woman. Again, Vinegar Syndrome does a lot of these exploitation releases, a lot of these ones that may not be as well known, but they're getting great treatments from the special features and the transfers. This actually looked really good, surprisingly so. Yeah, the acting was a bit shaky at times. The concept was super crazy and ridiculous, but it had its entertaining parts. Again, it's a Blu-ray DVD combo pack, and then there's reversible artwork, which is just very similar to the other main artwork, just slightly different placing of the title and the main shot right there. But again, crazy but entertaining. Next up is the Hearse, also from Vinegar Syndrome. This one was another one that was a little bit ridiculous to me, but I feel like a lot more people might enjoy this one because of that 70s feel going on to it. This is from 1980. It stars Trish Van Devere, who is married to George C. Scott, and David Gutera. He was, I guess, the lead actor here. There's a special feature on here called Satan Get Behind Thee, which is kind of an interview, and he talks about how he was up for the role of Damien in The Omen 3, and if you take a shot for every time he mentions that, you'll be dead by the time that interview is over. It talks about how that kind of inspired him for this role in The Hearse, but he talks about it way too much, going back to how he didn't get that role. He was too young for the role, or too young looking, and Sam Neill got the role. But really nice transfer here, restored 2K from 35mm original negative. It's basically about a young school teacher who's living in San Francisco, and her mother just passed away and she just got a divorce, so she decides to go to this small town where the mother willed her aunt's house, and so she goes there, and right off the bat they don't treat her well. Unbeknownst to her, the aunt was dealing in witchcraft, and so the townspeople didn't like her family anyways, and she's an outsider. And even the sheriff of this small town is kind of a misogynistic jerk. And so basically everybody's treating her poorly, but she meets this young stranger and starting to fall for him. And there's also Christopher McDonald's in here, Shooter McGavin. He's got a small role. Dennis Quaid has a very small role in here too. But it's basically her moving into this house the house is essentially kind of haunted by the spirits there, and there's this hearse that's chasing her down on the road every time she seems to go on the road. That part had some really good palpable tension with that, and trying to find out who's driving the hearse and what the connection is between the house, the hearse, and everything that's going on with the townspeople. There's a part where these little kids are like throwing stuff at the house, calling her a witch, and she can't understand any of it, what's going on. And people are afraid to go to the house. So it kind of has that gothic horror feel, but kind of updated. I think this one works well, especially has kind of like the 60s and 70s vibe going on, but again, it is from 1980. This one was definitely entertaining if you're into those kinds of ghost story kind of movies. And this one had a nice slipcover for it, but those ones are usually limited. This is what the slipcover looked like. That's the reversible artwork right there. And I kind of dig that one. But I like the original artwork that they chose because that kind of is very fitting, that haunting look right there. And there's the Blu-ray DVD. So another nice release from Vinegar Syndrome. And next up is With Great Power, the Stan Lee story. With great power comes great responsibility. A really good documentary about Stan Lee with a ton of special features. There's a gallery of over 500 characters that Stan Lee co-created. In the whole documentary, they talk a lot about his wife Joan and how long they've been together, going on 60 years at that point. And there's another special feature talking about their love, and she actually just passed away recently, so it's very tragic and sad. But it talks about how he started up, growing up in like the Depression when he was a little kid, and how he got the first job working with artists like Jack Kirby. I wish they would have talked a little bit more with the relationship with Jack Kirby, which was kind of turbulent at times. But Stan Lee owes a great part of his success to Jack Kirby. But yeah, they have a lot of different cameos from famous people like Kevin Smith, Patrick Stewart, Samuel L. Jackson, Eva Mendes. Just a ton of people talking about how influential Stan Lee was and how important he was. And it talks about the early days of Marvel and how they were, breaking out into TV and film, and how those first ones were not too good, and it took a while for the technology to kind of catch up to Marvel. Now you have all these big blockbuster films, but back in the day there was David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury. There was a short-lived Spider-Man TV show. Again, you've got the animation stuff too, and they talked about how he had his own company that kind of went under, how he kind of got taken advantage of in that situation. But basically, you know, his life with his daughter and his wife, and talking about the different relationships he had, and the rise of Marvel, and how, you know, they started out, you know, they went bankrupt at one point, but how they overcame everything, and how Stan Lee became one of the most influential people in comic books. Essentially, he is the most influential person in comic book history. Here is disc 1 and disc 2, right there. And then here is some interior artwork, which I dig that too. So if you're a fan of Stan Lee, I think you will really appreciate this release. A really good documentary talking about his life in Marvel. They could have gone a little bit more in depth in certain parts. Some pieces seem a little bit more fluff than others, but still very enjoyable, and a ton of great special features here. So there you go. There are the 8 pickups right here, and if you've seen any of them, definitely let me know what you think of them. Leave me a comment or video response down below. Hope everyone's doing well. Take care.